Hello again, and welcome to another episode of Sailboat Ads, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I apologize, I have not been consistent with my postings. And the reason recently is because I bought a new boat or an old boat. And so I have been working on many, many boat projects. And that's what I'm going to cover today. I'll get back to regular scheduled broadcasting shortly. So, yeah, sorry about the gap in my videos, but this one's going to be a little different. I bought an O'Day 25 centerboard version, of which they made about 2,900, and there are actually two for sale, both in California. And I like the design; it seems to be a pretty good, um, sort of small cruiser. Probably the biggest drawback with it does not have headroom for me. I'm 5'9". Headroom's about 5'5". So I can almost stand up in it. If I crick my neck a little bit, I can stand up. Obviously, anything outside of the main cabin, I cannot stand up in. But I kind of wanted to start with the trip out and back, and because it was eventful, not in a good way. So here's home. This is Little Palmer Lake in Colorado, and the boat is going to live here in Pueblo. And so what we did was we did a 2-day trip out, stopping in Las Vegas. On a Friday, we went and picked up the boat. This says Santa Monica. Actually, it's Oxnard. And then we came back this route, not that route. Sorry, this route through Flagstaff, Gallup, and Albuquerque. And I'll show you the boat, and then we'll come back to this map real quick. Oh, there's my calendar. I had meant to put up my pictures. So here we go. And so here's some good general pictures of the boat. These are pictures that I had to do for the insurance. Um, this is literally as I found it. The boat had not been touched in 3 years. You can see the last registration was 23. Terrible oxidation on the hull. Had not been even washed except by rain in the last 3 years. They'd left the mainsail on the boom, which I just think is a crime against boats. It's got a rigid boom kicker with the line left on, and the main sheet was left on. And basically, when they decided to park this boat, they parked it and hadn't touched it in 3 years. It was uh, buyer's remorse. I got to say, if I had gone out and spent a couple $100 on an air flight, I almost certainly would not have bought this boat. Um, just the complete lack of maintenance over the last 3 years, lack of anything, lack of any kind of attention whatsoever was, boats need attention. They not just only need to be used, they need regular maintenance. And there's well, actually, this is everything having to do with the trailer was completely wrecked. This winch, the strap broke about 10 miles into our drive. There's a very, very old, nasty um, trailer jack with no wheel on it, which I made a mess of trying to fix. The starboard side oxidation is even worse. You can see it's badly stained, the anti-fouling. Um, the boat is called Second Wind, which I think I might keep because I'm going to give it its second life, or maybe its third or fourth life. There's a Suzuki 9.9, which was presented as very low miles and, hadn't been on the boat very long before they bought it. They bought it in 2018. And so I'm thinking maybe this is a 2010 engine and it's got electronic ignition. And of course it doesn't. It has carbs, and it's actually from 1998. So this is a very old motor, but as it turns out, it's in decent shape. Got some pictures of the interior. Interior is not bad. Obviously, the cushions are terrible. And as I found out yesterday, getting quality cushions done in this day and age is just ridiculously expensive. I got a quote for $500 a piece for the 7 main cushions plus the seat backs, so $4,000 ish, which I just thought was kind of ridiculous. There's my hin, and we're back to the start. So let's go back to my my trip. So we go pick up the boat at about midday on the Saturday. We hit the road, and we followed this path back, and it became immediately clear that the boat and trailer were not properly sorted out. I knew that the trailer was not designed for the boat, and someone had retrofitted it to fit the boat, and basically the trailer isn't quite big enough. And so, dual axle trailer, our towing vehicle is a Toyota Grand Highlander whose tow rating is 5,000 pounds. The boat is 4,000 pounds plus probably at least 1,000 in the trailer. So we're really right at the max. And yeah, as soon as we started coming out of these, there's a bunch of rolling hills coming out of Oxnard as you're making your way east out of Los Angeles. The trailer just tried to steer the car, and it would very quickly and violently start to push the rear of the vehicle around to the point where it would wag once and wag twice, and by the time it was about to wag the third time, you felt like you were completely out of control, so you had to jam on the brakes. And so the technique ended up being anything downhill, I mean, even remotely 1% or higher, so even the slightest little slope, I had to drive at 55 to 57 miles an hour downhill, because basically what was happening is that the load was coming off of the trailer hitch ball, and so the thing would just start weaving around. The guy who was the marina manager also does trailer work, so he replaced the hubs, put new caps, not hubs. He replaced the bearings and put new bearing caps on. Made sure that all that stuff was in good shape. He replaced one tire and gave us a spare. So day 2, we got to about here. I was hoping to get quite close to Flagstaff because our hope was to do this 2 days going home, 2 days going out. Well, that didn't work. So our first flat was around Flagstaff, and the tire just absolutely disintegrated. And we ended up by the side of the road with flat tire. Unfortunately, I had brought everything you needed to change the tire. So we put the spare on, realized there was no way we were going to make it all the way to Pueblo on that second day. So we ended up staying in Albuquerque, and then, and actually, so this is Monday. My wife was with me, and she was very distressed because she hadn't planned on taking Monday off. Well, we got to just past Santa Fe, just about where that the sign is, or the label is, and the second tire blew. So we ended up having to go back into Santa Fe and try and find a couple of trailer tires, and discovered that the spare was a car tire, which is unsuitable. I'll show you a picture of what that looked like. And so we had to unhitch, drive back into Santa Fe, find 2 tires, and by the time we got back to the boat, which was just sitting on an off-ramp, we wasted 3 hours in all of that. Anyhow, we got to Pueblo about 4, and we got home about 5:30. So back to our slideshow. These are the good. So here's a picture of the boat on the water. You can see it's got, back in the day, it had nice yellow stripes. This is one of 3 jibs I got with it. You can see the main actually looks quite nice. And I'm sure it was nice before they watered it up and strapped it onto the boom and left it for 3 years to rot. Here's an old picture before anti-fouling paint and on a different trailer. This trailer has rollers, whereas the trailer that I have has bunk boards, which has turned out to be a real pain in the ass. You can see the mast looks very bright and shiny in its new white paint, and the woodwork looks pretty good in this picture. So I have no idea how old this picture is, but this was the picture in the ad, and shame on me for not asking more questions. And this is what happens to a boom if you leave it sitting out in the weather for 3 years with absolutely no attention. Southern California is pretty dry. It's not like the East Coast where there's lots of salt air, or lots of salt in the air. But obviously, still, this is terribly pitted, and I'm trying to figure out how to deal with that. Here's picture of the little galley. There's a 2-burner alcohol stove, a little tiny sink. There's a cold storage over here just in front of this step. These are the steps to get you out of the cabin. You can see the headliner looks pretty good. This is another boat. Yeah, there's the blue sail again. Here's an old picture of the interior. You can tell the cushions are the same. And, they put this sticky, stacky, fake wood stuff down on the floor. Why? This floor looks great. I'm not understanding why they did that. You can see the little fold-down table. There's a very small folding door. I can't fit through this going straight through, even though I'm not a very big person. You have to sort of sidle through it sideways. This is a completely destroyed Schaefer block, and I managed to find a replacement for it for $20, so I was pretty happy about that. Here's a good picture of the outboard. It looks great, looks like it's in decent shape. Well, it's not. It's completely trashed. About half of all the mounting bolts were completely seized. The interior, the carb had basically the mechanic who's working on it said that the needle had rusted away completely. He had to put a new gasket kit on it, and it's going to cost me $1,100 to get this thing back and running. It is a 9.9, which is way, way more than I think a 4,000 pound boat needs. A 5 would be fine. And here's the interior in better days with its pretty little table and cushions that look nice. I wonder how old these pictures are. So back to the projects. So obviously this hull needs to be completely redone. I tried hitting it with Meguiar's restoration kit. That did nothing, even though it had a so-called oxidation remover. That's laughable. It removed nothing except a few calories while I was burning it. Sorry, I need a little drink. So I hit this with 1,000 grit wet paper. And then ordered a product called Squall, which is supposed to be an amazing restoration product. And really the right thing to do with this is to go through the grits, probably to 2,000, do another sanding with 1,500, do another sanding after that with 2,000, and then start hitting it with the polish and those kind of paste products. But it's a massive amount of work, and I'm 67. I don't have the energy for it anymore. I definitely don't have the endurance. I go out and I work hard and physically for a couple of hours, and I'm kind of wiped. So that part's been disappointing. I'm about halfway through with using the Squall product, SKWOL, and it seems to be okay. I think it's not gonna be the greatest looking. It's not very consistent. But I think it will protect the hull, which is my primary. What I really, really, really want to do is to protect it going forward. So other projects, one of the big ones has ended up being actually, let me show you the grab rails. So the grab rails, old gray. This is after a really, really good power washing, so they actually don't look terrible. There are the runners for the main hatch. There are these massive 9-loop grab rails, and each one of them has a little tiny pad underneath it where the screw goes through, or the nut and bolt, which I've never seen that before, even on much, much fancier boats. And then the tow rails are just a little tiny, about a 3/4 inch tall tow rail, also made of teak. So after sanding, it looks like this. Let me zoom in a little bit. Obviously, I had to tape everything off. Sanding looks really good. I've actually put 2 coats of Cetal on it now, and I think it looks it's not amazing. This wood is so weathered, it's not very consistent anymore. And things like this block here is, there's a big crack in it there and a big crack in it there. But it looks about 100 times better than it did. So that was a major project. The hull is a major project. And then the other major project is the head. The head, I don't really have a good picture of the toilet. Why don't I have a good picture of the toilet? I thought I had a good picture of the toilet. Salon. No, I guess I don't. Anyhow, old school Jabsco, and had been hard plumbed into these two pipes. So this was the poop pipe and this was the supply pipe, and it sit right here. And no seacocks on these. So the only thing that was keeping water from coming in was the integrity of these pipes and how well it was fitted to the Jabsco. In trying to pull this floor up, I actually snapped this pipe, the bigger one. It came off right in my hand, so obviously it was very brittle, very old. My guess is that it has been replaced at some point in its life. And so when you pulled up the floor, that's what it looked like. You can just see the holes there, and I'll show you what they looked like. That's so once I got the floor out, which was not easy because the floor was actually sat on by the by this. There's a panel that sat right here. You can see where one of those screw holes is, and this was it. So this came out from behind the head, and then I could take the floor out. There's the back side of it. There's the floor again. You can see the panel's been removed at that point. So yeah, so here we have these two pipes that are they're silicone caulked there. Whoever owned this boat at some point thought silicone caulk was the thing to use everywhere because it's everywhere. And of course it's not. This is a particularly bad place to use it because as it gets old, and getting these out was actually a piece of cake. The collars here literally came off hand tight. They were not cinched down. But the reason this is a big project is because these two stupid things are sitting right on top of the bunk board for the trailer. So I had to figure out some way to raise the boat enough to get underneath there so that I can remove these two things. And I think I have a picture of that. Yeah, so here I've placed two boat stands underneath there, and I'm trying to raise the boat enough so that I can get access in underneath here, which I have done. I got just enough height to get a sawzall in, and I've actually cut this board and removed this bolt so that I can now get to the those through holes. Here, by the way, are what the second tire looked like. This was the car tire. You can see it says mud and snow on it, which you would never put on a trailer. And you can't put a car tire on a trailer because the firewalls are soft, or the sidewalls rather. And the tread just disintegrated. This actually still has air in it, and the tread just came off in sheets at outside of Santa Fe. So that was kind of an ugly little episode. So lots and lots of work to do here. Very, very disappointing that there's so much work that has to be done. I washed all the sails. I washed the boat. My poor power washer was going about 6 hours straight one day between the sails and the boat. And but that made a huge difference. Why the previous owner wasn't responsible for that, I don't know. The good news is I only paid $3,000 for the boat. And about $600 I put toward trailer maintenance. But I've got $1,100 in the outboard. It cost $1,300 to get there and back. Gas was consistently between $4.50 and $5.50 all the way. And the Grand Highlander got a low of about 12 and a high of about 15, as you might expect. Not a great tow vehicle for something this heavy. I would have been much better off with a Ford F-250 and a turbo diesel. That would have been the right tool for that job. But we did get her home. I did bring it up from Pueblo. It's now sitting in my front driveway. So that's sort of the story of the poor second winds O'Day 25 centerboard. Yeah, I will get back to doing ads, and I will because that's hopefully that's why you're on the channel, is you want to look at sailboat ads and my comments from around the world and around the country. There are many other boating centers in the United States that I want to go visit. I've been in Los Angeles and the Midwest and the Great Lakes, and I want to do the East Coast, and I want to do one on cruising cats and blah, 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 blah. So anyhow, that's it for today. Thanks so much. Appreciate your patience and look forward to seeing you soon.